morning. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Bechukotai. It's the last portion in the book of Leviticus. On Shabbat we will finish the book of Leviticus and get up in shul and say Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek. Today, Tuesday, when I was learning the portion of Chumash for today, it's all the curses, the warnings that God gives the Jewish people. And if they don't keep the Torah and the mitzvot, then there will be many catastrophes and many struggles and many challenges. But at the end, God says, even after all this, that the Jews may fail, and the Jewish people will be in the homelands of their enemies. I will never hate them, and I will always love them. And God promises, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, I will remember the covenant I made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will never forget them. Today in the morning I saw this article from the British Jewish news, about an Iraqi law that's about to be passed. It seems like it has a majority. And this law will forbid any Iraqi or any visitor to Iraq from having any communication with Israelis, not even through social media. Never mind supporting them or having any connection with them, and it's punishable by death. This law is one of the most extreme laws. It goes even more extreme than Kuwait and some other Arab states that have pretty extreme laws against the Jewish people. And I was thinking, you think about the Jewish people in Iraq, or the city of Abraham, the Talmud. We have the Babylonian Talmud that we study all over the world, that was authored and written by the Jewish sages in Iraq. In fact, just in 1917, under the Ottoman Empire, 40% of the people living in Baghdad were Jewish. 40%. But then, of course, in 1948, with the establishment of the modern state Israel, the 150,000 Jews that were left fled under tremendous persecution. But there still is very few and a small Jewish community which this bill is targeted at, which won't be able to communicate or get support or give support to its family if they live in Israel. It's horrendous. And sometimes you wonder, and it pains you to see how much anti-Semitism there could be. But we remember that even when we read these curses today, which might be so painful, we remember the promise that God gave us, that has been fulfilled, that although we've had suffering and challenges, He never forgot us. And many, many nations have ceased to exist and ceased to be around. But the Jewish people not only exist, but they thrive. In fact, just this week, on Sunday, Israel assassinated in daylight, broad daylight in Tehran, on one of the most secured streets and neighborhoods in Tehran, where many, many of the senior Quds officers live. They assassinated a man who was one of the highest officers in the Quds and was personally responsible for terror against Jews all over the world, and was just lately in Syria trying to help Hezbollah and Iran establish right to the northern of Israel. And it reminds us of the words that we read in today's Torah portion. Even when we're in the homes of in the lands of our enemies, God never forgets us. And Iran is trying to make up all these reasons why they couldn't catch these people who killed this person in broad daylight. And it's because they're embarrassed by the failure, they're trying to focus it on everything else. But it's a message from Israel that we could get into the heart of Tehran, and we could eliminate people who try to kill Jews. God tells the Jewish people in the Torah portion, Zacharti lahem, I will remember the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He doesn't just mean the covenant that He made with them, but He means the covenant that He made with them because we are like them. We embody those things that the patriarchs and matriarchs embodied. Abraham embodied kindness, chesed. His home was open to all, on all four sides, nurturing, feeding, Think about the Jewish people today, our philanthropy, our contributions to society in every manner and giving. Yet, people still joke about the Jewish people that they're cheap. Although we are so generous and giving and kind, God says, they might forget the covenant of Abraham, but I won't forget the attributes of Abraham that you have. And the same is true with Isaac. Isaac was the one who was taken as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah. We've sacrificed so much throughout our history, yet the world denies it. Look how many Holocaust deniers we have today, just 75 years after the Holocaust. God promises, I will remember the covenant of Isaac. I will remember the sacrifice, even if others don't. And third is, of course, Jacob. Jacob was the Ish Tam Yoshev Ahalim. Jacob was the man of the book. Jacob was the one who studied, who invented, who thought. You think about how much we have contributed, if it's high tech, if it's medicine, if it's Nobel Prizes, whatever it may be, our proportions, we're 1% of society or less, but we have 20, 30+% of the Nobel Prizes. Think about the impact Israel has had as the high-tech nation, and think about how much we've developed in medicine, that the world doesn't recognize it. They look at us as an eyesore instead of seeing our contributions that we have given and continue to give. Says God, even in the most challenging and difficult times, even with all our imperfections, I promise that I will remember the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, despite the world sometimes turning a blind eye to it, or even worse, denying it. And that's the message that we give to the people in Iraq that want to persecute the few Jews left there and say that if they communicate with their brothers and sisters in Israel, they will be put to death. God says, don't worry, I remember who the Jewish people are, and I will protect them. And the same message is to Iran. Iran consistently and continuously tries to destroy and annihilate the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, but time and time again, God makes them fail. And the message they got this week was so clear that we could go so deep into your territory, because Afghan Zois B'Yosam B'Eretz Ayivim, even in the land of our enemies, God never forgets us. God bless you. Be strong, be proud, and we will be stronger.